Hello class, my name is Sarai Signs, and today I will be discussing my author that I chose for my author presentation named Rebecca Traister. Miss Traister is a writer at large for the New York Magazine. She has also contributed to the New York Times, the Washington Post, and the New York Observer. What stands out from Rebecca's writing, and this is basically the reason why I've chosen her for my author presentation, is that her writing stood out to me from others because she writes about women in politics, media, and entertainment, but specifically from a feminist point of view. Now, Rebecca has many different articles, which I will name very quickly, which the ones I've taken a look at in her previous 5 years of work. One is called "The Poison of Male Incivility." Another one called "Surviving It All." The other one discussing Serena Williams, and it's called "Serena Williams and the Game That Cannot Be Won." And a recent one that she has written, which discusses what we are currently looking at in regard to abortion rights, the abortion stories we didn't tell, that's what the article is called. Now, the article I will be discussing today is called "Anita Hill Wants More Than an Apology." 30 years after her groundbreaking testimony to Congress, Hill says gender violence is still a public crisis. So basically what this article is about is and this article was written last year in September. It's been 30 years since Anita Hill went to testify against the Supreme Court nominee, which is now Supreme Court Justice Clarence Thomas, who during that time had sexually harassed her when they both worked together at the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission. And again, another reason why I chose Rebecca is because while I was reading this article, and now I also feel that I have made a connection with her writing, is that Rebecca gives women a platform to share and discuss their stories, or she writes about these women in an empowering way, or talks about their struggles and what they've gone through as women. And that's very, again I said, it's very empowering, because as women in today's society, and just overall in this society, women are known to be shut down. Our voices, we just don't feel seen or heard. And again, Rebecca gives these women, all women, a platform. So again, in regard to her writing, which again, it's in a very feminist perspective, and she's discussing about how Anita Hill is. So when I was first going into this article, I just thought, oh, she's just gonna give background about what Miss Hill went through. 30th. It's just been 30 years after this horrific incident has happened to Miss Hill, and the Supreme Court committee, these men just kind of dismissed what her allegations and the things that she was bringing up to them, and allowed this man to become a Supreme Court justice, which is disgusting. And I just thought she was going to give background and not really, and just say what she needed to say. But it ended up turning from and giving you the background of this story to also you're going to hear the personal side and her testimony and an interview from Ms. Hill herself. And again, like I said, Rebecca's writing is very direct. She really shows readers and truly makes readers understand the circumstances of what women go through, particularly in this case, Anita Hill. For instance, when she's discussing about Anita's testimony, she said, Hill's testimony served as a kind of fulcrum, marking an enormous and uneasy turn in America's recognition of gender inequity and justice. Basically stating that there has not been any fairness in regard to gender, whether it's in the workplace or just in society in general. Also, what I really loved is that she was asking Miss Hill these questions, and for instance, a really great example of this is she discusses how she says, it's seeing the hearings in 1991 and understanding the messages they sent, and also the long-term impact of the appointment of the Supreme Court Justice to a long lifetime position. Because Clarence Thomas is making the laws on abortion, on voting rights, on gender violence 30 years later. And then Ms. Hill says, yeah, and the long-term impact is also the impression that it's okay for a seat on the Supreme Court to be occupied by an individual who, if we had done a full investigation or had a fair hearing, might well have been found to have violated the very laws that he was put in office to enforce at the EEOC and the Department of Education. The fact is that the Senate Judiciary Committee, to this day, as far as I know, still doesn't have any procedures in place for these investigations. So if tomorrow there's a Supreme Court nominee and accusations come and there's credible evidence, who knows if anybody would even be able to step up, because there's no process for them to step up. Now that's shameful. She also asks Miss Hill these questions as well. And again, it's really empowering, and she's allowing Miss Hill to express the things that she's gone through in her life, and also the long-term impacts that now we are having to face in our society today, having Clarence Thomas as a Supreme Court Justice. Rebecca asks her, or says to her, you write about how gender violence, the umbrella term you use to cover so many of this range of power abuses, isn't just about the abuse, but the system that tells those who have been harmed that what they experienced wasn't so bad. Miss Hill says people in power don't want you to know how bad things are, because then they have the responsibility to fix it or stop doing it themselves. But the thing you're referring to, telling people it's not too bad, is the phrase Arlen Specter used to describe my situation. During the 1991 hearings, the late Pennsylvania senator mischaracterized Hill's answer to a question asked of her by the Judiciary Chair Joe Biden, suggesting that her then boss Clarence Thomas' comments to her about large breasts were the kind of thing we use all the time and thus not too bad. She said, to me, Specter's framing was, let's not think of this as a systematic problem, because as a senator I will have the responsibility to acknowledge it. As I vote for who's on the Supreme Court, as I propose legislation, as I vote on legislation that other people have proposed, as I see what's going on with my colleagues in the Senate who are engaging in some of the same behavior. And again, this is why I chose Rebecca, because again, she's giving someone like Anita Hill, after all this time, a platform to discuss and share her experience of what she has had to face. And again, as you could tell, even in 1991, and from what I've seen today too, not only by Rebecca's writing, but I also knew about this case too because my father brought it up to me. but it's a very important case, and it just goes to show you that um, women, their experiences tend to be degraded. They, as individuals, tend to be degraded. And having someone like Rebecca giving these women a platform, making them feel empowered and making them feel confident and safe is something that I will hold dearly to my heart, and I believe that it's wonderful what she's doing. And again, I think it really shocked me because I never thought that big newspapers or big newspapers or other magazines would allow a woman to write freely or write about situations or bring light of these situations. And that's why I chose Rebecca. Um, I will also leave links to the other articles I also mentioned because I think you guys would enjoy them. And I hope you guys enjoyed my presentation. Thank you so much for allowing me to share. Have a good one.